at all times and in all places. Lord, I thank you. I thank you for our brothers and sisters of Epiphany Parish of Seattle, and for the many ways, oh God, that you have called us, oh God, to partner together to bring life to your children in Haiti. Lord, please continue to bless Epiphany Parish. Please continue to bless their leadership, and please continue to bless our ministry together. And now, oh God, we ask that you would empower us with your spirit, oh God, in this time as we meet. Bless our listening and bless our speaking. We pray all of this in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Well, thank you so much. Again, I want to take this opportunity to offer my profound gratitude to each and every one of you for the many ways that you are bringing life to God's children in Haiti. And there's no other way to put it. And that is the partnership that God has blessed us with for so many years. And it's a partnership that I can say goes back to for me and for your rector, the Reverend Doit Khan, it goes all the way back to our time together at Virginia Theological Seminary in Alexandria, Virginia. And we have been good friends ever since. My second year in seminary, our second year in seminary, we had a chance to go to Haiti together. And so it was a blessing for me to go to Haiti with Doit and a group of our classmates and one of our professors as part of a course entitled Reading the Book of James in Haiti. It was such a blessing to be able to study the book of James here in the United States and hear what James has to tell us as we live in one of the richest countries in the world, and then to go to Haiti, one of the poorest countries, certainly one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, and to hear what James had to tell us anew when we got to Haiti. And so it has been a blessing for me to share in such a life-giving friendship with your rector, Doit Khan. And so I give God thanks for Doit. I give God thanks for you, Reverend Ruth and Garcia, and to the entire leadership of Epiphany Parish, because you have been such a strong supporter of our ministry together in Haiti. And again, whenever I say that we are giving life to God's children in Haiti, it's not a figure of speech, or it's not a metaphor, or it is actually true. It is actually true, because the population that we work with is a population that, if we had not intervened in their lives, most likely they would not be alive right now. It's as simple as that. If we did not intervene in their lives, these are children who are living on the street. These are children who are living in the worst condition you can imagine. And by the grace of God, we are able to intervene in their lives. We are able to give them a hot plate of food. And you would think one hot plate of food is not enough to actually sustain a young person, or to actually sustain a child. But in a place like Haiti, it is a gift. It is a gift to know that you actually have one guaranteed hot plate of food that you know is gonna come to you. And when we were called to do this ministry in Haiti, and for me, it was a no-brainer, because I grew up in Haiti. I grew up in that part of Haiti where I know what it means like when you get up and you see that there is no smoke coming out of the kitchen, and you know that there's not gonna be food that day. And so for me, when I was called upon to engage in this ministry, I just knew that this is part of the ministry that God called me to. And wherever I ended up in the United States, I knew it was gonna be a part of my ministry. And so after seminary, I worked at a church in Washington, DC. This is where really I started the Haiti Micah Project at St. Timothy's in Southeast DC. And then I went back to work at Virginia Seminary, and certainly the Haiti Micah Project was a big part of my ministry at Virginia Seminary, and then the rest is history. And so it has been a blessing for me to partner with Epiphany Parish. Whenever I would go to Epiphany, and you are always gracious to me, and the hospitality has been amazing. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your hospitality, and I want to thank you for your generosity towards God's children in Haiti. Where are we right now in Haiti? By the grace of God, the Haitian government took the coronavirus seriously from day one. And for me to be able to say that about the Haitian government, I'm happy to be able to say that because there are many things I could say about the Haitian government, but I must say that they took the coronavirus seriously from day one, which is the reason as of today, we only have 196 deaths in Haiti, recorded deaths in Haiti. And that is recorded. And sometimes, there may be more than that because they are not recorded, but at least we are less than 200 deaths right now in Haiti. And let me tell you, the projection for this time right now was in the thousands when it comes to Haiti. And so I have to stop and giving God thanks. That right now we have only recorded less than 200 deaths in Haiti. And I believe as of today, we have about 7,830 somewhat positive cases, with a little bit more than 5,000 who have been recovered from the virus. So all in all, the Haitian government have done a pretty good job ensuring that the people actually quarantined, ensuring that they actually stay inside, and ensuring that they wear masks when they are out as best as they can. Of course, the challenge with asking the Haitian population to quarantine is that they are not able to get out on the street to make a couple of dollars, because the majority of the population, they depend on going to the big store and buy something and being able to go to the streets and sell it back. And sell it back to clients and sell it back to whomever. That way they can make a couple of dollars to feed their family and send their children to school. And so when you quarantine them, you tell them not to go out. What's been happening in Haiti, even though they are not dying from coronavirus, but it's the hunger. It's the hunger that has been a major problem in Haiti, because again, they are not able to actually, there's no stimulus package. There's no stimulus package of any sort in Haiti. So therefore, they are left with, those of us who are living outside of Haiti to send our remittance to help families in Haiti. And so hunger has been a major, major issue for us in Haiti. And of course, everything is so expensive right now, from the basic necessities, the stuff that you need to feed your family, to feed yourself. It's difficult to actually purchase basic food stuff. So that's been the greatest challenge. But all in all, on the one hand, we give God thanks that again, the cases, the positive cases are not higher, the number of deaths are not higher, but at the same time, Haiti will have to figure out how they're gonna feed the population going forward. And of course, for us, from the very beginning, food has been a big part of our program, because as much as we wanted to intervene in the lives of these children, because most of these, they were not going to school when we actually intervene in their lives. And so, but again, you cannot send them to school on an empty stomach. So therefore, a feeding program, we actually started on the Haiti Micah Project with a feeding program, where we know that if we want to send them to school, then we cannot send them to school on an empty stomach. Everything in Haiti is memorization, and therefore we have to start with the feeding program. And so since 2006, we have had a feeding aspect of the program that sustains, again, not just the children in the program, but that really sustains the community. And then we've added education, because education is key in really one of the poorest countries in the world. To be able to actually give a child in Haiti an education, it is a gift. It is an absolute gift. And so once we started the feeding program, then we added education. And I must say, we are now in 2020, we have supported hundreds of young people in Haiti to go to school. We do that by giving them tuition stipends. We do that by purchasing school supplies. We do that by purchasing uniforms. we have supported hundreds of children to obtain an education. And it's something that we are very proud of. As much as we know we would like to support them beyond high school, but we know that funds are always limited. And so we have made supporting them through high school a priority. But even now, by the grace of God, we have 3 young people studying in the Dominican Republic. And again, it is something that, again, we are very happy that we are able to support these 3 talented young people to continue their education in the Dominican Republic. Hoping that after all said and done, they will go back to Haiti and again, become leaders in Haiti. And then once we added education, then we opened the orphanage, which has again been a blessing because again, some of these children are living in deplorable conditions, and being able to actually give them a roof over their heads has been a huge blessing. But in addition to the children that we have there 24/7, the home has been used as a transition as well, where when the authorities find a young person on the street, they bring them to us. And they say that you take this child until we can actually find a family member, until we can actually find an extended family member. So that's a part of the program that has been a huge blessing, that the Haitian government recognized the work that we are doing. They trust us enough with any child that they find on the street, they bring them to us and they say that you hold on to that child. And of course, when they bring them to us, they don't give us a dime to care for that child. But again, by the grace of God, we are able to actually take the child in or the young person in until such a time. But several of them ended up staying with us. And because again, once they cannot really find an extended family member, then we just hold on to that person or to that young person, and that's why, again, at one point we had more than 30 children and young people in the home, but right now we are down, Sarah, I believe we are down to 23, correct?
About 21 from the last list I got.
Okay.
It's 21 of them.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yes.
And so we've added the home, which again has been really a life-saving for so many children. After the earthquake, after the 2010 earthquake, we had a major water shortage. And since we've been doing this work in Haiti, right after the earthquake, we've lost 1 young person. Of all the children that we have intervened in their life, that we have supported, we have lost 1 young person. And the reason for that is there was a major water shortage after the earthquake. And because we had the cholera outbreak right after the earthquake. And so because of the shortage of water, we ended up partnering with Living Waters for the World, with Solar Under the Sun, and a Presbyterian Church in Richmond, Virginia, and built a water treatment center. That was built to provide clean drinking water to the program and clean drinking water to the community. And finally, we built a vocational school, because we wanted, even while they are going to school, to secondary school, that we would give them a tool, knowing that we don't have the means to support them to go to college necessarily. We wanted to give them a tools, whether it's sewing or auto mechanic or English. We wanted to give them a tool. And so again, through our partnership with some of our major church partners, including Epiphany Parish of Seattle, because when we were envisioning the vocational school, I went to Epiphany and I preached at Epiphany and presented the project to all of you. And so you have been a part of, especially the vocational school from day one. And so I want to thank you for all of your support for us to build a vocational school that, again, right now is, again, where our young people can actually learn to sew, learn English, and so on and so forth. So again, I don't want to go on, go too much longer, because I know you will have questions, and I know Jim and Sarah may have other things that they want to add. But right now, I think the greatest challenge facing Haiti, like here and everywhere else, is back to school. Because after being quarantined for a long period of time, this past week, and really the week before, now they are trying to bring the children back to school. And with that, it means that we're going to have crowded public transportation, we're going to have crowded classrooms, and that is a major concern. But again, we are praying. I know they continue to take all kinds of necessary measures to ensure that the children are safe and the teachers and administrators are safe, but it is definitely a concern. And again, one last thing that I will say is that there's no, school is not free in Haiti. There's no what we would call public school in Haiti. You have to pay for your education in Haiti, and that's always a major issue for Haiti Micah Project, because we have so many children that we are trying to help to get an education. But again, the cost of an education in Haiti is so high. So I want to stop here. And again, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support. Again, thank you for giving life to God's children in Haiti. Thank you.
So Sarah and James, do you all have any things you'd like to add?
I'll just answer some questions that we've gotten before with regard to how we deal with the money. We have a staff of, what would you say, Sarah? How many do we have working in Haiti?
About 29.
About 29 people. These are cooks. These are teachers. These are people who care for the children in the orphanage. And it's run by we have a gentleman who has a business degree and who's an accountant, who's extraordinarily gifted, named Makar, and he basically runs our staff down there. And every quarter, I will wire money. He'll give us a budget, and then every quarter I'll wire money from Bank of America here to the local bank in Mirabelais. And so we keep a very close track of what we have in financial resources, and we make sure that they can account for it very well, and they do. I can just say they're good stewards of the money that we send them. And it's a very, I don't know how we would do this in 1980 as opposed to 2020, but the ability to be able to, for me to sit at my computer and wire them several tens of thousands of dollars, it really is an amazing thing, and it works out quite well. So I'm very proud of the ability that we have to get the resources on the ground where it's needed. The U.S. side of this equation really is all volunteers, except for Sarah as an administrative assistant. And frankly, her efforts far outweigh the minimal amount of salary that we're able to pay her. And Sarah, you're a blessing, and I'm glad to have people who can witness my witnessing of you, because without you, I don't know what we would do. So with that, Sarah, do you have anything to say to augment? And then maybe folks from Epiphany can ask any questions that they might have.
Well, Father Constant pretty much covered all the programs that we have. And right now, what's really thriving is the orphanage. But the two other aspects, because of social distancing and everything, we haven't been able to reopen the feeding program or the vocational school. But our hope is that as schools reopen and children are back to school, we can reopen the feeding program, because as Father Constant said, that's a very important aspect of our program when it comes to our community. Our children, depend on that, hot meal, whether before or after school. And also, as he mentioned, our boys in the Dominican Republic, are doing very well. We have one studying electronic engineering. one about to start business administration, and we have another one in carpentry, with the trade of carpentry. And those are boys that have been with us in the orphanage since about 2009. So we're very happy, that, we can help them beyond secondary school, and we are happy that they are thriving. Right now, the big challenge, as Father Constant said, is bring the kids back to school. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have.
Questions?
Oh, when you mentioned going to school, are you still, I mean, is St. Peter's Episcopal Church still one of your partners, and do they go to that school? Did your children go to that school, or do you actually provide you mentioned teachers being on the payroll. How are you schooling some children yourselves?
Our children go to a number of schools, not just St. Pierre, not just St. Peter's. Certainly, we have actually a great number of children. Most of the children in the home, in the orphanage, go to St. Peter's, but they go to a number of different schools. And Sarah, you can contribute in a moment. And so no, we also have the teachers that we mentioned that we are paying. They are tutors that we have hired to work with our children, especially during during the lockdown. Now, when I say lockdown, in Mirbale in Haiti, last year was a challenging year, all year round, and it's because we had all kinds of political issues that forced Haiti to basically to go on a lockdown long before coronavirus. And because of demonstrations against the government, schools were not able to function. And so the way we addressed that was that we hired a number of teachers who were not able to teach because the schools were closed because of the lockdown, to be able to tutor our children. But basically, we pay even St. Peter's, which is probably the best school in town. But of course, it's also the most expensive school in town, because again, they train their teachers. They bring teachers from Port-au-Prince, from the Haitian capital, to teach there, and so they are definitely the best school in town. So a number of children, including most of the children in the home, go to St. Peter's, but they go to a number of different schools. Sarah?
Yes, as you mentioned, most of our kids come from St. Peter. We also have Sacré-Cœur, and we have Fraternity. So 3 main schools that our kids go to, but the ones from the feeding program go to other schools in the area.
Father Constant, back in 2013, I think it was, the Partners in Health opened a big university hospital in your town, and I'm wondering, through the vocational school, is there any opportunity to maybe enroll students through their medical programs as teachers, nurses, whatever?
Thank you. That's a great question. Thank you. That's a great question. Yes, the hospital has been a blessing. It has been a blessing to to Haiti, and certainly to the Mirbale area. And the hospital had been there before, but after the earthquake, and right before the earthquake, they were envisioning rebuilding the hospital because the hospital before was in Conge. But with the earthquake and with all the help that Dr. Paul Farmer was able to get, they ended up building a much bigger hospital. But again, the challenge with the hospital is the challenge that so many organizations working in places like Haiti have been facing is a lack of funding. And so some of the care, some of the programs that the hospital had envisioned, they are not able to necessarily maintain, if you will. And so the question you just asked is something that we've been looking into, and we've been knocking at doors to see, if we can partner with them in some way, shape, or form. And I have met Dr. Farmer. I have talked with him about the work that we are doing in Mirebalais, but it's not something that we've been able to do. But I know that, again, especially as we mentioned, we have 3 boys studying in the Dominican Republic. We would like to see how we can, the next time we talk with you, that we would like to say that we are also supporting 3 girls or 3 young women, to continue their education beyond high school. So it's always something that we are looking at to find ways and avenues to help them to continue with their education. But yes, the idea of partnering with Zami La Santé, with Partners in Health, is something that we've been looking at.
Okay. So is there a good way to, how would you recommend that Americans stay in touch with what's going on in Haiti? What's the best source of news that gives the truest picture of what's going on? And what should Americans know about this country?
Thank you. Great question. It's always a challenge because there's so much going on in the world. And it feels like unless there's something major, like the earthquake, like a hurricane, you don't really hear about Haiti in the news. And so you really have to be a fan of Haiti. And Haiti has so many people like yourselves who care about Haiti, who wants to know about Haiti. But again, you are not really hearing that much in the news about Haiti. So, Miami Herald tend to do a pretty decent job at, from time to time, giving an update in terms of what's going on in Haiti. So if I want to find something that I'm not finding from, the local papers and New York Times, I would go looking for Miami Herald, because we have such a strong Haitian population living in the Miami, Florida area, that you can always find some type of Haiti news through the Miami Herald. Again, some of the other papers like New York Times and, from time to time will give you an article, but it's been difficult. Even I mentioned the lockdown, so many people didn't realize that Haitian children were not going to school long before coronavirus. Because again, there's so much going on in the world, so much going on in this nation, that Haiti tends to be not a priority. Sarah, you have anything to add to that?
So Miami Herald is pretty much, the source, because there are a lot of Haitian American working for that journal. So that's why, it's so reliable. Okay. I mean, but we're not really in the news as, for the Constant would say. Right. So once in a while, you'll find a little article here and there. And, for us, again, the best way to get the news is from the source and talking to them in Haiti. Yeah. There's nothing like talking to them in Haiti and finding out what's going on.
Yeah, and I listen a lot to Voice of America. Voice of America is another source where they do actually translate, even though they have a Creole division as part of Voice of America, but they also have English programs as well that provides news, daily news in Haiti. So some of the statistics that I just gave you about the coronavirus is because I just listened to their program on Friday. That was as of Friday, but again, just today, I was also able to get the latest statistics because I knew I was going to be talking with you. But again, Voice of America is also another good source because they do have a Creole division.
Could you tell me if you're still working with the, I'm going to mispronounce it, Asile community?
Yes. Yeah, many of our children came from the Asile. We have one of our young men studying in the Dominican Republic grew up in the Asile. I believe he was born and raised. He was born in the Asile, and so we went to get him from the Asile to get him to the home, and that's Jackie Estima. So the Asile. Now that I'm not going to Haiti as much, I don't remember the last time. I think, Sarah, it's when we were in Haiti together
Yes, in
I visit.
April. Yeah,
Yeah, that
April 2018.
exactly, that we visited the asile last. But from time to time, we do send support to the asile. I would send personal support to the asile, not necessarily, it's not necessarily a ministry of the Haiti Micah Project, because what we do is, again, we if there's a child, we can take the child from the asile and support them, but the asile is not necessarily a place that is a ministry of the Haiti Micah Project, but we support the children living in the asile. From time to time, someone would say, can you send the child who is living in the asile, can you send them to school? But the asile is still a place that is just, it's a sad place. When you go to visit that place, no human being should be living the way these children, young people, men and women, and the elderly, the way they are living in that place.
Could you briefly kind of describe, I mean, I've seen from what I can see on the website, but I don't really even know exactly when you're talking about that community. Yeah. It sounds like just like a really super poor area of this town, right?
No, thank you so much for that. In Haiti, actually in Mirebalais, when you are the poorest of the poor, and they don't really call you the poorest of the poor, they just call you poor. Once you say someone is poor, most likely that person is living on the street, because poor does not necessarily mean that you are living in a shack or that you are basically struggling from day to day. Poor basically means that you are living on the street. And in Mirebalais, we always, growing up in Mirebalais, for me, there was always all these people basically sleeping in the open air market. And that's why they would say the poor sleep in the open air market, in the market. And President Aristide, who is a former Roman Catholic priest, when he became president of Haiti, he built a number of homeless shelters that we call an asile. He built a number of homeless shelters, but the homeless shelters were for the elderly, those people whom I just talked about, who would basically sleep in the open air market. He basically built these places with these people in mind, with the elderly. That way they would have a roof over their heads. That doesn't mean that they would have a meal or anything like that. They would at least have a roof over their heads. They could go out and beg for food, but at least they can come back and have a roof over their heads. The asile that is in Mirebalais, and he built a number of those around Haiti. The one that's in Mirebalais was built maybe for about 15 people, because again, the rooms are limited, one outdoor latrine. Well, on any given day, you can find 80 people living there. And the 80 people that you find, that's 80. You can find 80 people. These are children, young women, young men, elderly, men and women, handicapped, elderly folks. Of course, and sadly, the young women who are living in the asile, on top of each other, they don't have control over their lives. They don't have control over their bodies. And so when I was going to Haiti anywhere 4 to 5 times a year, every time I go to the asile, I see a young population of children in the asile, because unfortunately, the young women, they don't have control over their bodies because they are living in a desperate situation. So that in a nutshell is the asile. And like I said, when it was built, there was one outdoor latrine for them to use. Well, when I was going there on a regular basis, because whenever I go to the asile, to Mirebalais, I would go to visit the asile, because normally that's how they actually live. When someone go and they visit them, they give them some change and all of that. The latrine was full. It was full to the max. And so for them to use the facility, if they whenever they use it, they would have to walk a mile down to a ravine, to a ravine, just so that they actually can use the bathroom. So that's the condition of the asile that we're talking about here. Imagine in the middle of the night that you need to use the bathroom and you don't have a place to actually use the bathroom.
What are the politics like in general?
Oh boy. Yeah, no, that's always a challenge for us. Unfortunately, it's always a challenge. It's interesting because you know, I have a vision of a book in mind, and really, the thesis of the book would be, you know, if you have the will, if Haitian, if the leaders, if our leaders in Haiti have the will, they can actually put their heads together and take Haiti to the ladder of development. Because I'm seeing what's happening right now with the coronavirus, how they manage to stop their politics even for a moment, to stop you know, looking out for themselves even for a moment, to focus on the well-being of the Haitian people. So it's always something and really, when we talk about Haiti, there are so many aspects to Haiti's politics, because again, there are the Haitian leaders living in Haiti, and there's the outside interference, which you can never discount. The outside interference that call themselves the so-called friends of Haiti, and they have as much to say about what goes on in Haiti as those who call themselves even prime minister or senators in Haiti. So on the one hand, you have the Haitian leaders in Haiti. On the other hand, you have the outside interference. And for some reason, the outside interference that I mentioned, they would rather that Haiti remains poor. For some reason, don't ask me why. And that's why I tend to stay outside of the politics question, because I get excited. I get angry and I get excited. Because again, it bothers me, because I've been doing this work a long time. And I've been doing this work with you a long time. And so I would like for a time to come when there's not a need for the Haiti Micah Project.
Yeah.
That's my vision.
President the next time there are elections.
Joseph,
I thought we were friends.
Joseph, a commentary maybe. Joseph and I talk all the time, and one thing that I've learned over the years is just how complicit U.S. government policy has been in making the lives harder for people in Haiti. And it can be just as mundane as issues with regard to tariffs that we put on imported sugar and corn, and I think with Haiti, we flooded the country with cheap rice and basically put farmers out of business. So the complicity that our government has had, and it's been Republican and Democratic administration, so I don't want to paint this necessarily as a partisan thing, but we bear some responsibility, and I think as Christians and as concerned citizens, we have to perhaps monitor what our own government's doing with regard to Haiti. I know that one of the problems with President Moise right now is the fact that he's lacking with a lot of popular support, and yet the current administration is strongly supporting him, I believe. And how much that contributes to the unrest, I can't really say, but it kind of makes me ashamed sometimes that as an American, ostensibly trying to help a third world country, that in fact we're doing more harm sometimes than we are good. Now I realize I may have lit your fuse, Joseph, with that commentary, but that's some of the takeaway that I've had with some of the discussions that we've had.
No, you're absolutely right, Jim. Thank you.
Well, that's not the only country we bear responsibility of this nature for.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah. So if you were to recommend one or more books or other sources of study for Americans to learn a more comprehensive picture of your not only current situation, but just the terrible politics and history of the creation of your country, and just the background, the context that because I think that, you know, Americans live in their own little bubble, and I for one don't know a whole lot about Haiti either, but there's like you say, Americans have have an outsized responsibility for the other countries in this hemisphere, I believe. And is there something that we can do to remedy our bubble-headed ignorance?
Well, I would definitely start with Haiti after the earthquake. Haiti after the earthquake, written by Dr. Paul Farmer, is a good read because it's written by someone who's extremely talented and who has been working in Haiti before I left Haiti. Because I remember the Sunday when actually Dr. Farmer, he wasn't a doctor then, when he actually worked in my church. Because the priest that I grew up with is the priest who brought Dr. Farmer to Haiti.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
Father Lafontaine is the priest that I'm a priest today because of Father Lafontaine. And Father Lafontaine brought young Paul Farmer to Haiti as he was working out his dissertation and whatnot. And they co-founded Partners in Health together. And so Haiti after the earthquake is definitely, I would highly recommend it because in Haiti after the earthquake, the piece that Jim just mentioned about our rice production, Dr. Farmer actually addressed it. And the reason, again, I recommend it is when Dr. Farmer wrote Haiti after the earthquake, he was actually Bill Clinton's right-hand person. Because you'll recall after the earthquake, President Obama appointed President Clinton and President Bush to oversee the fundraising for Haiti's recovery. And Dr. Farmer was appointed by Bill Clinton. And so Dr. Farmer was not afraid to actually name the fact that it is under the Clinton administration that the United States destroyed Haiti's rice production so that we can help farmers in the United States and really pour cheap US rice in Haiti. And when you basically, Haiti does not produce a lot. And when you destroy something like a rice production, that's the reason. When I left Haiti in 1984, $1 equaled 5 Haitian goods. $1 equaled 5 Haitian goods. Today, in 2020, $1 Haitian, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, equals to what, 130 or something like that? Haitian
Close
goods.
to that, about, last time I checked, 121,
Yeah.
125.
Right.
Good.
Right. So that's
yeah.
the rate of inflation. That's what's been going on even really from 1984 to where we are today. And a lot of it has to do with US policy and other nations' policy towards Haiti. So yes, I would start with Haiti after the earthquake. If you want to go in terms of a more historical aspect of Haiti, James Liburn has a wonderful history book on Haiti. So I would definitely recommend James Liburn's book on Haiti as well.
Well, the book by Paul Farmer before this one about the earthquake is called Mountains Beyond Mountains.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good one as well.
Basically built this hospital, led the effort while he was a medical student at Harvard and didn't miss a beat on getting his medical degree at the same time.
Oh my goodness. No, he's so talented. No, again, both books are really good reads. So thank you for that. Yes. Because the other book that he wrote before that is The Uses of Haiti. And again, he evolved so much after he wrote The Uses of Haiti, but the title of the book itself is still valid today because so many nations have used Haiti in the past, going all the way pre-independence, and they continue to use Haiti today. And so the title of the book itself is still valid even today, The Uses of Haiti by Dr. Farmer. So I would say just one thing to add. Right now with the home, the greatest challenge we face, and we are addressing it as we speak, is the fact that we opened the home in 2009. And in that one complex, we have the girls living in one house in front, and then we have the boys living in the back. Well, as with my children, they are growing up, And unfortunately, they are not necessarily seeing themselves as brothers and sisters as we would like to hope. And so with hormones raging, we are at a point where we feel we have to separate the boys from the girls. And so that's a major challenge for us right now, is to either build a facility that where we can actually place the boys, because again, we don't want something to happen knowing that the signs have been there, that we cannot really have the boys and the girls reside in the same complex any longer. So right now, this is one thing that we are working on. We have an architect working on a plan for us, because we have a piece of land that we can actually build a facility where we can actually house the boys. So that's one project that we have before us right now. In addition to finding a way to sending these children back to school, and we opened the feeding program, separating the boys and the girls is a major project for us right now.
Wow. So can you, we gave $10,000 sometime in March or May, and then we gave, fairly recently, we gave another 10,000. And I think it would be very meaningful for the larger parish to know, if you had a kind of a sense of what that particular little pot of money went toward. Is there any, is it being used to help, maybe, I can't remember if we directed it to the feeding program, or which is not going on. So, as far as I'm concerned, you could use it for whatever you need it for. But is there, I don't know, I'm just curious if you could be more specific about what particular things that sort of met a need for.
No, thank you. I'll start, and Jim and Sarah can actually add to what I'm about to say. It's basically doing exactly what I said. It's doing from the very beginning. It's really giving life, because again, the children in the home, we are responsible for every aspect of their lives. Again, we are basically the numbers. We are reducing the numbers, because as they get older, we are transitioning them out of the orphanage. But we are responding for meals for them, morning, midday, and evening. We are responsible for their clothes. We are responsible for tutoring them. We are responsible for their education. And also the staff that we've had, that has been really loyal. And again, just like Sarah in the US, our staff in Haiti, they do miracle when it comes to providing for the needs of the children, because on any given day, we are feeding anywhere between 450 to 500 children when the feeding program is functioning. And so to actually have a group of cooks, people to basically security and all of that, it's a huge blessing. So they have been loyal. So even during the lockdown, we continue to pay our staff, because again, like I said before, there's no stimulus package in Haiti. And we know that it is important that they rely on the little money that we pay them. So we continue to pay our staff, all of them, because we know that it's not their fault. That the country is locked down. It's not their fault that the virus outbreak. So we continue to pay our staff. So again, the money that you have sent, again, it's a huge blessing, and we thank you, and we thank you, and we thank you. And so what it's doing right now is to continue the operation of the program in so many ways. And again, we didn't even talk about healthcare, medical care, because again, even during this lockdown, we had a young lady, she's 16, and this young lady's blood count was so low, because she's one who was brought to us. We have no idea who her parents are. There are no parents. There's no family to know about, but she was brought to us. And so she's been living in the home. And so we have no medical history. And so she has all kinds of medical issues. And so during the lockdown, it turns out that her blood count was so low and she got so sick. At one point, it felt like she was not gonna live at all. And we needed to find 6 people to actually give blood, just to give her enough blood to raise her blood count. So we went to work. We mobilized. At one point, I was in touch with the vice president of the Red Cross in Haiti. We just mobilized because we did not want to lose this young lady. And by the grace of God, our staff in Haiti, Sarah here, all of us doing what we needed to do, by the grace of God, they took her not to the hospital in Mirbale. Unfortunately, the hospital in Mirbale did not have the care that she needed. They ended up taking her to another facility in a nearby town. And so today she's doing much better. And all of the children in the home have been seen by a doctor during the lockdown. All of them have been tested for coronavirus. So the healthcare also is another aspect of our program that I didn't even talk about. One of my trips to Haiti after the earthquake, I took a student from the seminary who was a nurse practitioner, just to examine the children. Another trip to Haiti, I took a group from Howard University and a group of Haitian doctors to Mirbale. So the healthcare and medical aspect of the program is also something that's a part of giving life to these children as well. So your money is doing miracle in Haiti. So thank you.
Holly, Jim here. We'd be happy to give you a breakdown of how we allocate those monies. We have two funds, basically. We have a general operating fund, which is where your $20,000 went, and that's covering these unexpected medical expenses. Although we're not running the feeding program right now, we're actually spending more money because we're having to deal with the complications of COVID. But we also have another fund called the Joshua Tiekling Fund, which is a memorial fund to a young man who died of cancer. And that we use for post-secondary education. And we have about $75,000 in that fund, and that's what's covering the 3 students in the Dominican Republic. So right now, go ahead.
Well, I'm asking those questions not because I feel like, oh gosh, I want to know what pennies are being spent. I just think it's compelling for people to say, oh, this money is doing this thing, and it's just something tangible to attach that dollar to. That's my only concern.
I fully appreciate your comment. We do have we still run sort of titularly the Sponsor a Child program, and that allows people to give $365, basically $1 a day. We allocate that mainly for education, but it also helps the kids in the orphanage. Now, some people say, well, I'm in the Sponsor a Child, who's my child? And we're able to give you a photograph and a description and of the identity of a child. Unlike a lot of programs, though, there are some programs, as you may know, that'll actually have a child write their sponsor and everything. Well, that's an extraordinarily expensive and difficult thing to administer. So in all candor, the Sponsor a Child is just a way to say, I want to support a child, any child.
Yeah.
And we can, but Sarah can also provide a picture and an identity of a particular child in the program. So I know with my family, we stick that kid's picture up on our refrigerator and we keep her in our daily prayers. So I would commend the Sponsor a Child. Again, it's not a direct relationship between the donor and the child, but it lets us put a face to the program. And I think that's very helpful for people.
That
well,
is
I have
helpful.
to tell you, I have to tell you that the monies given by Epiphany came, a long way because as I work with the administrator on the ground, we had so many unexpected expenses that came up. So, we felt like that was a true blessing from God. We had generators going out. I mean, everything that you could name was happening.
Oh, yeah. I can
And, we had to deal with it. So,
Right.
Knowing that we had that money, was very helpful. And the fact that the good is being so weak, like Father Constant said, $1 for about 120, 130, food prices going through the roof. And we have to keep the warehouse where we keep the food for the home children. We have to keep it, you know, we have clothes on the ground that keeps it, you know, furnished, because we never know what is going to be politically outside. We don't know if somebody's going to be on the street to go get food for them. So we make sure that we have food at least for 3 months at a time, so that the cooks can have ingredients to feed them morning, noon, and evening. And right now, we have the boys in another location, so we have to transport that food from the girls' location to the boys' location. So it's a lot of logistics. And a lot of times, as I sit and talk to them, I realize that my piece is not difficult. Theirs is very challenging.
Yeah. Can imagine.
Yeah.
And the other location that the boys are, we are using one floor of the vocational school as a temporary living facility for the boys. Because again, we have, you know, the staff on the ground has told us over and over again that it's time to separate the boys from the girls. So now that we are not using the vocational school, we lock down all the equipment, all the sewing machines, all the computers, and we are using one floor of the vocational school to house the boys until we figure out exactly where we're gonna put them.
Wow. So do you have any idea what, I'm hogging all the questions, I'm sorry, everybody, you just have to jump in, okay? Do you have any cost figure yet for your new facility for the boys?
No, they promised me cost figure this week.
Okay.
So as soon as I get them, we'll be happy to share them with you.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Okay, good.
Wow, well, we're at an hour and then some. This has been very helpful. I feel really like I've gotten a better insight into what your situation is there. Or do you have a Facebook page? I
Yes.
look on your website a lot, and
Yes.
sometimes that's kind of old. So in your newsletter of March
Yeah.
2020 is not showing up, that I can't find it. So if there's a newsletter that you have for March, I think the link is broken or something.
Yeah, I think we had one for April, if I'm not mistaken, and then one for July. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
they're
we
not
can
on-
send
they're
that to you.
Yeah, they're not showing on your website yet.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We just got a new webmaster because our former one actually passed away at a very young age, and so we're still working with this agency to get our online presence up to date. So I'm glad to hear that, because that lets us know what people are getting and not getting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
There's no reason why we
website's out
can't. Yeah, there's no reason why we can't do these little links. As much as I really don't like Zoom, I realize its efficiencies, and you know, we'd be happy every couple of months to get together with you, particularly if we have something newsworthy.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
that's
it's good.
really helpful, because all the questions that Holly has been asking you, as she said, is for information, because we've really been fortunate with the generosity of our parish. And one of the things we've been doing, Holly's serving as our sort of head of our communications, is just constantly putting out information about our partners that we've helped, because I think we all know this is going to be a long downturn. And so, you know, we have photos, Holly will take photos, etc. So that's what we're hoping, is that, you know, our people will continue to be so generous to those of you who are doing these important ministries. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We'll provide a link to this this particular meeting. We'll put it up so that people can get to it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, again, on behalf of the board of the Haiti Micah Project, both on the US side and on the Haiti side, and the entire staff, and certainly the children of Haiti Micah Project, I want to thank you. Thank you, Reverend Ruthan. Thank you to my friend, the Reverend Doit Khan, and thank you to each and every one of you for your love for Haiti, for your support of the Haiti Micah Project. You have generous. And for that, we give God thanks and praise.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, I'd like to end with a word of prayer. At our board meetings, we always end our board meetings with a song that I shared with you when I preach at Epiphany. And it goes something like, l'Esprit Saint descend sur nous, nous gagnons mission pour Haïti. L'Esprit Saint descend sur nous, nous gagnons mission pour la terre. And the English translation is, oh Holy Spirit, descend upon us. We have a mission for Haiti. Oh Holy Spirit, descend upon us. We have a mission for the world. Let us pray. Oh l'Esprit Saint, descend sur nous, nous gagnons mission pour la terre. Oh l'Esprit Saint, descend sur nous, nous gagnons mission pour la terre. Amen.
And friends, while we say goodbye to our friends from Haiti Micah Project, we need to take a very quick vote. And that'll only take a few minutes. So if we want to stay on real quick, that would be great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
God bless you.
Thank you
Thank
very much
you.
for arranging this.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
All right. Holly, will you remind us the vote we're taking today? You sent it out to everybody. We did get some people, I think.
Yeah, well, it was everyone who responded was, and I think that covered everybody on our team, was yes for the affirmative. Pam put the check in the queue for it's the $6,000 that we're giving to Backpack Brigade. The money that they got to sort of restart for the summer came from a grant that they received from the Safeway Corporation. Nichelle had asked 80,000 and they gave her 40,000. The $6,000 gift that we gave is based upon, that's 1 week's worth of food costs for what they're doing right now this summer, which is they're providing 1,100 meals to Seattle schools. Pam was able to get the check in the queue for this past Friday, and it will be mailed this week to them. So thanks everyone for being so prompt and getting that facilitated.
Okay, and
So I
just
think,
stick to our new rules. Let's do the official vote, right?
oh, okay,
So
okay,
remember,
all right.
we're supposed to wait 1 week, so we
All
have
right,
to do the official.
sorry, did I jump again? I'm sorry. Mea culpa, mea culpa.
Yeah. We're just trying, just so that everybody knows, and I know that a lot of people got back to you, so that's perfect, but we want our official vote. Someone just put it forward. Holly, let's.
I move that we get, I'm sorry, is it, okay, I'm terrible about Robert's rules, I'm sorry. I'll say something like
Moving
this.
that you approve the money we've already sent up.
Okay.
We're not putting that in the minutes. We're changing. So Holly's proposing, then you second it, Mike, and then we'll pass it.
All right, I second the motion.
All right.
All right. good.
In favor.
Stop.
Aye.
Perfect.
You know,
Okay.
democracy is a messy, slow thing.
All right. So, real quick, just some housekeeping stuff. I will be sending the link out. Mike, you're gone next week as well?
Yes.
Okay, and then Frank, you said you'd send out, I can send out the link, but you and I can test it. I don't think I need to be on it for you to use the existing link. Are you able to help us, Frank?
If you send me the link, I can send it out.
Or I can even have it automatically sent out, but we may need you to be like the host of the meeting.
I can do that. One thing is, even if it doesn't